Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Gaming Stooges Talks podcast. We are the Gaming Stooges.
I'm Jack.
You can call me Cloud.
And I'm Landon.
We hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and if you do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on Twitch, or joining our Discord. Let's get on with the show. And that concludes my review for Akira Kurosawa's 1962 opus High and Low. Truly one of the greatest films of all time, and I give it a 10 out of 10.
That was a great review, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you.
All aboard the boat to Unova. We're talking about the Generation 5 Pokemon games, Pokemon Black, White, Black 2, and White 2 today.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are hyped because I am.
He is.
I am.
So before we start talking about our personal opinions about the games, let's just kind of go over the hallmarks of the generation real quick. Generation 5, and I'm doing this noteless because I'm built different, so if I make speaking mistakes, I'm sorry. But Generation 5 is a generation that introduced not a whole lot of new stuff to the series that actually stuck around, interestingly enough. But was a big leap forward as far as polish goes, which unfortunately is probably something that didn't stick around for long. But containing 156 new Pokemon, which to this day, the most Pokemon introduced in a single generation ever. So pretty crazy. Also, the only generation of Pokemon where the new Pokemon, the first Pokemon in National Pokedex order listing, is not the grass type starter. It's actually Victini, a mythical Pokemon, which had a code supplied in every new copy of the game back in 2011.
I'm convinced they put it at the beginning of the Pokedex and not the end, purely because of the promotion and how they were giving it away to people.
Exactly, right.
Hold on, let me pull out the slip that I still have in my DS copy of Pokemon Black. Get the mythical Pokemon Victini. You can meet Victini TM in the game's Pokemon TM Black version and Pokemon White version, only with a key item, the Liberty Pass. The item will be distributed via Nintendo registered Wi-Fi connection on the release date March 6, 2011 through April 10th, 2011. And then instructions on how to get Victini.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You should read that out in complete detail, and that's the podcast.
No. So, Generation 5, going back to stuff that I introduced, there was triple battles and rotation battles, and these are actually split between the two games for the most part, although you could have a couple of the opposite versions battles in your version. White version mostly dealt with triple battles, and the black version mostly dealt with rotation battles. It's kind of interesting. Triple battles are exactly what you think they are. They're basically double battles, but one more Pokemon on each side. But it does affect how the gameplay functions, where certain attacks cannot cross all the way over. So if you have a Pokemon on the left, you can't attack the Pokemon on the far right because they're too far away. I have a vivid memory where Landon spammed Bulldoze against me in a triple battle, and I lost.
I remember that.
He literally just beat me by using Bulldoze over and over again.
That's how we do it, folks. Just Bulldoze.
I
taught all of my Pokemon Bulldoze for no reason.
Speaking of things that this game introduced, TMs are now infinitely reusable and are no longer disposable. So you don't have to worry about, which Pokemon do I give my Bulldoze TM to? I can give it to fucking all of them.
Now, to be fair, they did a huge rebalance of progression. When you would get certain TMs, there's not always a chance to, in the earlier games, because they were not reusable, you could get, certain really powerful TMs once kind of early in the game. Black and White, they don't really do that. You get all of the weaker TMs earlier, and you don't get, the really powerful ones till post-game.
In Generation 1, you get Psychic early as fuck. You can potentially get it before getting your 4th gym badge.
Yeah, you could technically get it before gym badge number 3 if you put it off. because you can skip Surge. You don't
that's right.
You don't have to go through Rock Tunnel with Flash. You can fumble through it.
Yeah,
yeah.
True.
Can't you technically do Surge through? Well, I guess no. You need Surf for Blaine. Surge
through Sabrina. You can do in any order.
It's Sabrina. Yeah, you can do in any order.
But anyway, back on Black and White. Also introduced. You had triple battles, rotation battles. You had reusable TMs. You had infrared connectivity for like wireless communications for like trading and stuff. They had introduced infrared connection in Heart Gold Soul Silver for Pokewalker exclusively, but they stretched it to a lot of different functions where you can do some like trade and battling and stuff and basic communications that you could do locally. They had like an infrared connectivity for, so that you could do it a little faster, and this actually worked outside of Pokemon centers, so you didn't have to be at a specific spot to do these things. Which also, thanks to that, Pokemon Black and White are the first games where you can trade Pokemon directly from your box. You don't have to fucking have them in the party anymore.
Oh Thank God. I forgot that they introduced that.
A lot of just cool quality of life additions in the 5th generation. Black 2 and White 2 would add the option to automatically use a new repel when you run out. You'd have a customizable extra pocket in your bag where you can just throw literally whatever you want in there. So if there's like very specific items that you always want to have just the quick and easy access to, you just toss them in your free space pocket and there you go. It's all set for you. Also in Black and White, Black 2, White 2, there was the new Unova region. Obviously didn't mention Unova besides, the little bit as we came in, but it is a very interesting region.
It's the first one not to be based on Japan.
Yep. First region not based on any particular part of Japan. This one being based on mostly New York City with parts of like northern New Jersey. Kind of interesting. Just weird, but pretty cool idea for a region. It's very linear for like the main game, but you've also got a huge section for post-game areas. Black and White also were the first they had like so going back to the infrared, there was also like a thing called Entralink, and there was like this thing that you could go to in the center of the map, and on top of going there for infrared to like communicate with other players, you could also use Wi-Fi to like, at the time, you could like talk Pokemon into like a dream world, and that was something that you could do, which you had to go on an actual computer or your smartphone if you had a really nice smartphone at the time, because this was 2011, and you could go on a web browser and do weird mini games with your Pokemon.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is now down unless you're willing to hunt around for fan-run servers, which I don't think exist. And if they do, it's probably a little bit of a pain to set that up. But yeah. Black and White, though, Black 2, White 2, besides like the major like triple battles, which ended up not carrying through after a certain point in the series, and reusable TMs, which also eventually went away with the current generation of games as of the time of this recording. A lot of the stuff that this generation had is mostly just like just throwing a ton of like features. There's nothing like new mechanically speaking. They just did a lot of like weird little things. Like Black 2, White 2 has Pokestar Studios, which is this totally separate mode where like you can play as like an actor, and they have like these like mock fights which use things that are not Pokemon, but in the data structure of the game is like technically a Pokemon. And it's like really weird. There's like reenactment of some movies. The original games had like a musical, which was supposed to be a replacement for contests. It's not very good. I barely ever touch it. There's the Battle Subway is the replacement for the Battle Tower in four of these games. And it's a little interesting. You can do like double or single battles, and each of those has like a separate head. There's also in the sequels, Pokemon World Tournament. And in the sequels also, there's a lot of like changes to the region because unlike in all the other generations where this applies, you'd have like what a lot of people just call an upper version, where it's basically like the director's cut. You had your yellow, your crystal, your emerald. They didn't do that this time. They didn't do a platinum version. They did sequels, and they are actually substantially different enough that they are their own thing. There's a different story, there's different progression, there's new areas to explore. You're not going through the same story whatsoever. There's even totally new Pokedex. In Black and White, they actually rebooted the Pokedex so that you could only use these 156 new Pokemon. Asterisk, because some of these are mythicals, you can't actually get them all that easily. But you could only use those Pokemon in the Pokedex and nothing else until the post-game. And then when you unlock the post-game, you can get everything else. Well, Black 2, White 2, they would like expand on that so you'd have like double the size. Jack, we were trying to cut
one pretty major thing that they introduced to these games that would not carry over to any future generation is seasons.
Yes.
But they don't work like they do in real life because, you know, different hemispheres, different seasons. So instead, it is by month. So it starts
on a 4-month cycle.
It's on a 4-month cycle. And it's kind of weird because some months are going to be different. There's a lot of people that online when the games came out, why the fuck is it fall in March when the games came out? But it goes January, spring, February, summer, March is fall, April is winter, and then it just repeats through the rest of the year.
So it cycles 3 times per year.
Yeah.
And this actually, in small ways, can affect how the game will function as far as like the overworld. There is an entire town where the exploration of the town depends on whether or not it's winter. If it is winter, there's the ponds that are everywhere. They freeze over. Icarus City is the name of the city. And you'll be able to traverse it in a different way. And there's also a couple other areas that this applies to. Not too many. But yeah, seasons are another major thing that they introduced. Never came back. Another interesting thing that Black and White did, I don't know to the extent that Black 2 and White 2 followed up on this, but a lot of the Unova region has a lot of like musical, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but like they did some weird stuff with the music where like depending on context, the music can change slightly. So like if you're running through a route, it will have more of like a drum line, more instrumentation to it than if you're just walking at a regular pace through it. There's a couple of areas specifically in Accumula Town, I think is the name of the second town of the game.
Where Accumula Town, where you can like, there's there's 3 different people that have like instruments. It's kind of like Mario Odyssey where like Pauline like asks you to go find like members for a band, but it's like you just talk to these people in their homes and then they just like start playing their respective instruments, and it just adds more to the town music that is already playing.
Yeah, and it's really cool. They do in the original Black and White, they have a part right at the end where you're going through Victory Road and there's a room for every badge, and as you start at the beginning, all you hear is like atmospheric windy ambient noise, and then there's a new instrument added every badge, and it layers up, it layers on, it layers continue until you get to the 8th badge room where the whole thing is actually playing at once. So yeah, these games do a lot of weird, interesting things. There's special encounters that they do where like a tile where you can normally have an encounter, whether it's grass or in a cave or water, might have some special effect going on with it. Either the grass is rustling, or there's like a dust cloud in a cave, or there's rippling water. And if you interact with that tile, you'll get special encounters that you can't normally get throughout the route. So you can have... For one really wild example is there is a small chance, I think in Black 2, White 2, where rippling water, if you're fishing, can allow you to get a Dragonite. Not a Dragonair, a Dragonite. Yeah. It is insane the amount of little Easter eggs and little things that these games do. But yeah, let's just get into talking about like the new Pokemon, the new region, the new characters, because a lot of the stuff that I'm sure we're going to want to talk about applies to these. We will be giving more of our full thoughts on the actual Pokemon in a special Patreon exclusive, where we're going to do a tier list for all of these things. So if you want to hear more complete thoughts on every single Unova Pokemon evolutionary family line, that's probably where you're going to want to go. But we'll give some like basic thoughts and some stuff to cover within this podcast.
So the main, like, one thing about Pokemon Black and White is that it was more or less a soft reboot for the series, because in the main storyline, until you get to the post game, your only choices for Pokemon are the new ones. The reason there are so many new ones in this generation, 156 total, is because they're like, this is the Pokedex for the main story, and you only have these Pokemon to choose from. And I think that is part of the reason why these games were so hated when they first came out. I
wouldn't say hated, definitely divisive.
Okay, they were divisive. No, I'm not saying everyone hated them. Some people did. Some people, the correct people, loved it from the beginning. But there are people, there was like a shitload of people back in the day that were like hating these games. And a lot of it was just because of the new Pokemon designs.
Yes. There's a lot of, there was a lot of backlash at specific Pokemon designs. Like, not even like the whole Pokedex in general. A lot of people were like, oh, Vanillex, the ice cream Pokemon, looks stupid. Garbodor, oh, it's a trash Pokemon. Ha ha ha. So funny. They would like harp on Pokemon such as Sigilif, because they were like, this thing doesn't even look like anything. What is this? Like, just whatever the Pokemon was, there was just like a few specific handful of Pokemon that were like, everybody was just like, they didn't like them. And I'll admit, like, when you introduce 156 new Pokemon, there's a good chance you're not going to like a bunch of them. Like, I want to find somebody out there that actually thinks like all 151 of the Kanto Pokemon are awesome and not a single one is stupid. Like,
that was always
there's some stupid Kanto Pokemon.
There's like, at least two stupid ones from my generation.
That was always my argument against people that were dissenters of Gen 5. Like, just look at the Gen 1 Pokedex and how many dumb Pokemon are in that one. Like, if these were introduced today, you would hate them.
Like, in the Kanto, not to go on too long, but like in the Kanto Pokedex, there's literally 3 whole Pokemon. The whole premise of the Pokemon, not saying I dislike these Pokemon, but their whole premise is there are 3 of them. That's the whole thing.
Yep.
There's Dugtrio, Dodrio, and Magneton. They said for 3 whole Pokemon, let's just put 3 things together. That's it. That's the whole Pokemon. So like,
I mean,
there's
a literal buffalo.
Yeah.
Well, with Tauros, he's
a bull. Yeah. There are a lot of
bull.
Pokemon in Unova that are like what we call XPs, which is basically like, this is a callback and a reference to this previous thing, but it is not technically that thing.
Yeah.
Gigalith is your Golem, which honestly I like Gigalith more, so like upgrade, cool. Conkeldurr is like the new Machamp. You've got Unfezant,
Woobat and Swoobat are
Golbat, Zubat. Pidov's line is the new Pidgey line. Like,
Throw and Sock
or Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon that are just basically like, not even just an archetype of Pokemon that they designed for every generation, but more than anything, literally just referencing Pokemon from mainly Gen 1, but sometimes like another generation as like, you know, here it is in this game. But I mean, on a mechanical level, they are not the same Pokemon, not even close. Like, they make a lot of these Pokemon separate and they have their own identities. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but personally, the batch of Pokemon that they introduced in Generation 5, there are some that I really don't like, and we'll get into those on our Patreon exclusive. But I think overall there's a lot of good ones. Like not a lot, but like a good chunk of Pokemon I think are really cool that I really like are from these games.
There are like a good chunk of Pokemon in this generation that I would say are like some of my all-time favorites. There are some stinkers. I'm not trying to say there aren't. There are some clunkers here, but like most of them are pretty fucking good, honestly. Like on average, I would say this is a good generation just for Pokemon designs. I'm not going to get too into it because I want to save that for the Patreon video, but like overall, I would say this generation is solid in that regard. How do you guys feel about the region? Like Unova in general?
I would say that it's probably one of my favorite ones. I go back and forth. It's kind of hard to decide. Really.
I like Unova quite a bit. But when it came out, like when Black and White first released, I was like, I loved the games, but Unova at the time was like my least favorite region in the series. And it's purely because it's extremely linear. Like in Black 1 and White 1 especially, it really feels like you're kind of railroaded for your journey almost. Like, you know, it opens up more once you beat the game, but like you're pretty much just following the line
there's
on your
like
journey.
Pockets of side content, but
yeah, it's not as I'm kind of like, I guess I was kind of spoiled because like Hoenn and Sinnoh are like super expansive and big regions that have like tons of side content, and Unova doesn't have a whole lot of like side paths or like optional content in the main story.
So
I mean, even Kanto and Johto had a decent amount of like you could really explore those in comparison.
I think what it is that Unova Unova does have a lot of like side areas you can go to, but they're just kind of like small branches off of that big line. Like there's like the desert area, there's like that side part that you can go to with the ruins. There's like the Mistralton cave that's like tucked off on the side. There's little pockets where like there's an area you can explore off on a side and then go back to the main part. But yeah, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot to do on the side because it's still along a straight line. It's
honestly, some people would probably disagree with me, but I think Route 4 is like one of the coolest parts of Unova just because of like how open it is and how much there is to explore.
I just want to mention though that the Unova region, it's kind of so at the time of us recording this is the middle region out of all 9 generations because it's the 5th one, coincidentally, and it is in a very awkward place where it has aspects of both the 4 regions that came before it and the 4 regions that came after it. So like, and what I mean by that is that in the first 4 regions, there was a lot of emphasis on like optional areas, as we've said, where like they're not forced on you. You don't have to go there, but if you want to explore a little bit on the side, it's there to do that. Like there's just a lot of those little areas tucked away on the side. However, they also take a cue from a lot of the newer regions where, you know, more so it inspires the newer region design where it's a lot more linear and it's a lot more focused. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is also going to feel like there's like, even if there is side stuff to do, it does feel like you said, Jack, you're being funneled along a certain path. Like you are being kind of railroaded through this more streamlined region. And I mean, that's something that the Alola region does. There's something that the Galar region does quite a lot. Kalos doesn't do it quite as much as those two, but it does still do it more than the 4 that came before Unova, so it's still like closer to modern region design. So it's weird. Unova's just like in that awkward middle ground where like it's a little bit like the old stuff, it's a little bit like the new stuff. It's a transitional region.
I don't dislike Unova by any means. It's not my least favorite region in the franchise. We'll get to that one. But it's like, it's good. I think I understand what they're going for with the region, and I like all of the individual areas. Like, I like all of the towns in the game. It's just, I kind of wish that the paths that you take to each town were a bit more interesting.
I gotta say, one thing I like about Unova, and this applies to both Black White 1 and the sequels. The sequels expanded on the Unova region, by the way. Like, there's way more areas that they added to the region to make it feel more full. But this applies to both sets of games, is that every town and like every location that you go to, it feels like there's just a lot of people to talk to and places to go see real quick. Even if there's like nothing all that like important to do there. Like, this is the last region where I feel like there's a lot of incentive to just, you know, just go dick around and just kind of like go into this house, go into this building, go into this little place on the side.
Yeah,
like Kalos is the first region where that stops feeling as exciting to do, and there's less and less of it as time goes on. And then we get to Paldea, where there's almost no buildings to go inside of.
Paldea, okay.
We'll talk about those.
We'll get to that one. We'll get to that one.
But yeah, Unova is like the last region where like I really feel like you could just kind of get lost in the world. Like, it just feels like a world that was designed to be explored and be a part of, not just an instrument to push you through a game.
Also, I wanted to point out, I think this is a really funny fact. So Castelia City is like this was their first like big fucking city in the series, where it's just like a gigantic, like, I mean, it's based on Manhattan. It's like there's tons of There's tons of skyscrapers. It has multiple screens. There's like tons of like alleys and buildings that you can walk into. And yet, the population of Castelia City is lower than the population of Nimbasa City. Yeah. Where the fourth gym is. Although that's not included, even if you exclude, because I'm looking at I've just had the list of towns open right now. Nimbasa City's total population is 239, but it's still 150 if you exclude all of the trainers from the big stadium and the small court, which is still higher than Castelia's total population of 130. And which is kind of funny.
And both of those cities,
empty buildings.
Yep.
Well, it's not necessarily that. Like, there is a lot of empty buildings, but there's a lot of like buildings where like you just can't go to like the whole building. Like, a lot of the skyscrapers and like tall buildings you can go in Castelia, it's like you can only go to a designated like couple floors of the building. It's not like you can go to like every one of the 13, 14 floors in this certain building. It'll be like, oh, you can go to floor 5 and floor 9 and floor 10, but none of the other ones.
You can go to floors 6, 12, and 57.
Yeah.
No in-betweens.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it still feels like a big world, like it's a big city to be in. And Nimbasa City has so much to do. You've got the Ferris wheel. You've got the big stadium and small court where like you can just fight battles against trainers that are like dressed up for sports every day. Like, there's the musicals, there's the battle subway, there's like another thing, there's another attraction in Nimbasa City that has to deal with like special battle style. I can't remember if this is different between the games or if it's in one of the specific games where I'm thinking of, but I know that there's like an inverse battle mode where like the type chart is like flipped upside down, and it's here. I think it's here in this game. I know it's in Kalos, and I think it's only in those two. And like, yeah, they like do this thing where like the type chart is like just flipped around. But like, there's like a place in Nimbasa City, or it might be a different city, where like you can specifically like fight a triple or a rotation battle. There's just so much you can do. Did you guys know that in Black 2 and White 2 there's like a side quest you can go on where you have to go to very specific tiles to use this like lost X transceiver to talk to somebody who owns the X transceiver, and then you give it to them, and then you can keep talking to them, and eventually you get to date them, basically. Yeah, I'm dead serious. So there's two NPCs. There's Yancey and Curtis, and these are the female and male NPCs for the male and female protagonists respectively.
Curtis
is the guy's name, and they're both like laying low. They're like they have like an alter identity. Like they have a second where like they're actually like they do something successful, but they would have this second life where they want to, just kind of like lay low and just like, just have their own like, personal time. And you get to spend time with them on that personal time. And then you learn that they are this like successful person. Like for Yancey's, like she's an idol and she's actually like a well-known singer or whatever. But and if I remember correctly, I think her name is literally Nancy as like the singer. Like she just changed her name by one letter. I remembered it was like the silliest thing. But and Black 2 White 2 have like a lot of other side quests. Like, can we just talk about all the side shit you could do in this region as a whole? Because there's just a lot. Like the in Black 2 White 2 there's like the tower or the White Tree Hollow you could go to. Depends on your game if it's Black 2 or White 2. And you could like ascend up this tower, and it wasn't technically a battle tower because it wasn't it didn't have that specific like battle style to it, but it was a dungeon that as you made your way up you could eventually fight Alder's grandson. I think it was, I don't remember if it's son or grandson. I think it's grandson. And if you beat him, he would give you an egg, or I don't know if it was an egg or if it was just the Pokemon itself, but you could get a shiny Dratini or a shiny Gibble. You just got it just for completing the tower. And it was, and speaking of which, in the original game, that the Black Tower and the White Tree Hollow would be part of Black City or White Forest. And this was a thing where like you could swap between the two if you connected to the opposite version. And if you communicated with just people that were playing any of these games, you could like populate those areas. So again, a lot of connectivity features that they like added in here. And like depending on whether you had White Forest or Black City, you could like add more to the shops in Black City, like buy more stuff. Or if you're in White Tree Hollow, you could like obtain more Pokemon to be in the White Forest. It's crazy. Like I could honestly go on and on with all the small things that these games have that you could do. Like and a lot of this was post game that I'm talking about, by the way. Like the stuff that we talked about, like with Nimbasa City and Castelia City, that is main story stuff that you can do. But a lot of this stuff is like just stuff you do in the post game or on the side. So there's a lot of stuff. But speaking of the main game, let's compare the two. Black. So both of the games have like the majority of the Unova region is explored in a similar order, but there is some stuff shifted around. In the original game, you'd start down in New Vema Town, I think? Yeah, New Vema Town. And you would go up through from the southern area, and you'd like fork your way around the western part of Unova, and you'd go all the way up to the tippy top of the region from that side. And then in the second game, the sequels take place 2 years later, and they already had a lot of stuff happen. So like there's like some areas of the region have been affected in a way that they're hard to traverse. So you are a different protagonist in the sequels, and you start over on like a little, I don't know if it's an island. I don't think it's an island. I think it's just like it's like near
quite an island. It's like I don't know.
Because it's hard because the map doesn't zoom out enough for you to see like the full area that's over there, but you're on the western side and you take a boat over to the mainland, and when you do that you end up in Castelia City, and then you go around the same section. But there's a point where you can't actually proceed north, so you actually have to take a plane and you go over to a town that did not exist in the originals, called Lentimus Town, and then you can go through like this like weird route that's like it's not quite desert, but it's also like it's like craggy. It's kind of like dry, arid. And then you can go into this one cave that then leads you up through both a mix of like old areas from the post game of the original and some new areas. It's like really weird.
One thing that I think is cool that Black 2 and White 2 do is that your starting town, is it Aspertia or Aspertia?
I think it's Aspertia.
Aspertia City is the first like starting town in the franchise that has not only a Pokemon Center, but a gym.
Yeah.
Like, the first gym is in the town that you start in, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, because the way they did it was like, there's only like 3 or 4 like small cities and towns in that section, and the last one that you go to is going to be the city that allows you to go to both PokeStar Studios and take the boat over to the mainland. But everything else is like you traverse it and then go back down to the starting point for the first badge, and then you go back up and through all the way in order to get to the second gym. It's kind of interesting. The progression is they mixed it up in Black 2 and White 2. Like that, they definitely tried to, make it not as linear.
Yeah.
That section you guys are talking about for Black 2, White 2, you have to think about the region is like on a bay.
Right.
And then there's a mountain range that's blocking off that small section from the rest of it. So it's on the mainland. You just can't access it through a route. That's why you have to take a boat.
Yeah,
but it is all technically mainland. So it's not.
Yeah, it's not an island. It's just like kind of secluded from the rest of the region.
Yeah.
I'll post the map in the spoilers if anyone wants to take a look at the Unova region.
And not only that, but just like introducing towns like that are just in the middle of the fucking region that were not there before is pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a couple. Like I mentioned Lentimus Town, but there's also Humalau City, which is home to the new final gym. You do get to go to the original location of the final gym of the first games, but you actually skip over the city that had the 7th gym from the first games, because the guy that was in charge of that gym, Bryson, he goes off to be
an actor.
An actor for PokeStar
He retires
Studios.
from gym battles to be an actor. And honestly, why not? Why not?
He becomes Bryson Man.
Bryson Man. Hell yeah.
So fucking weird.
I forgot about that.
That's his alter ego.
Yeah, and also I think like it's cool that they show like character growth and development with several characters in this story, but I'll start with your 2 main rivals, Charon and Bianca, who like both have their own individual arcs and their own like personal battles to overcome, and like you kind of view that through each battle that you have with them over the course of the first game's story. And then in the second game, Bianca is now a professor's assistant, probably going to be a professor someday, and then Charon is the first gym leader. And I think that's sick.
I actually want to go even harder on that. There's a whole thing in Pokemon Black and White 1 where like there's a lot of theming based on like the different characters. There's like a whole thing on like truth and ideals. There's also like, black and white, like, one side of a coin, other side of a coin, a yin and a yang. Like there's a lot of this like theming of and Charon and Bianca's whole thing is that Charon as a character he goes in, he knows what he wants to do. He wants to be the strongest trainer. He wants to be on top. He wants to be like a champion and all that other stuff. And by the end of the game, he doesn't know what he wants to do. He's at a loss. Like he just camps out in the cave of Victory Road and he just trains, and he's just like, I haven't figured out what I want to do yet. And you can rematch him as much as you want. But he loses his goal at the end until he comes back.
Fucking sucks because I beat his ass.
But he he eventually, obviously, he comes back and he becomes the gym leader. Bianca is the opposite. She starts the game, no fucking clue what she wants to do. She's just going on the journey, just to go on a journey and experience freedom and being able to go out and do things, because the characters in this game are actually aged up from the typical Pokemon game. Whereas most of the time, the main characters, you and your rival in a Pokemon game, are like 10, 11, 12 at most. These characters are in their like mid-teens, so they're like generally accepted to be around like 15-ish, 16-ish.
I think I've read
at
that
the youngest side.
I think I've read that the main trio is 16.
Yeah,
like player character Sharon and Bianca.
Yeah, and that all sounds just about correct, because when they age up the couple years, they're basically adults at that point. And going back to Bianca, she, over the course of the game, she slowly realizes what she wants to do, and she actually knows by the post-game of the first game, I want to be a professor or an assistant to a professor, and she becomes that in the second game. Like, she knew what she wanted, and she achieves it.
She's the one that gives you your Pokemon at the start of the game.
In the sequels, yeah.
In the sequels, and that's sick.
So you get to immediately see, thanks to that first city where both Sharon and Bianca are, that like what are they up to, what happened to them. So it answers the question that you probably have at the end of the first game. But the cool thing is it's like, even if you have never played, even if for some reason you didn't play the originals, these two characters are still like just good characters. So like you don't have to like, you don't have to play the first game to understand, but it's really nice for the people that played it to like be like, oh, these are what they did. And there's even more stuff with like that time lapse that I want to talk about a little later after we've talked more about some of these characters. There's N.
I was going to say I think like Black and White 1 probably has like the single most well-written like enemy antagonist team in the franchise.
Team
like
Plasma.
Team
It is
Galactic,
one of the best stories.
not Team Galactic, Team Plasma.
This is like probably one of the best storylines.
Oh yeah, like Black
game.
1 and White 1, I would say has the best story in the franchise.
So let's get into that. The Team Plasma are introduced during the very second city, or Accumula Town, the second town in the entire game, and there's a whole gathering where Team Plasma is like chilling out in like a courtyard in the town, and this their leader, this guy Getsis, he comes up and he's like talking about how like it feels wrong and immoral that all these Pokemon are being held captive in their Pokeballs, and that they're not being allowed to be free. And it's like this, you think that on the surface, this is a team that like they stand for something, good. So like obviously this is a Pokemon game, so like the guy that's in charge is an asshole and he's actually like evil. But the characters don't know that. Team Plasma themselves that work for this guy do not know that. They think that they're fighting for a good cause, which is a part of
some of them do.
I would say like a good chunk of them do, because there is like a split. We'll talk about it when we get to talking about the sequels, but like there's a split where like some of them, they don't really care about the thing they're fighting for. They just want it to feel like they belong. So like they'll stick with the old Team Plasma when they split up. But the other ones, like they went in it because like not only did they want to belong, they really believed in the thing that they thought that they were fighting for, and they splinter off during the second game. But basically Team Plasma is this team where like they're fighting for the supposed liberation of Pokemon, and their leader, even though so it's weird, they have a hierarchy. It's not simply one leader like you would typically see in previous games. You have like a multi-layered approach to this leadership. There is who they typically refer to as their leader is a character, very weird, enigmatic character. We'll get to him actually, but there's also a set of like 7 what they call sages, and one specific sage, Getsis, is like the one that's like front and center for like the antagonistic role of the game. But there's actually 7 of them, and they're like kind of like a weird council or whatever that's in charge of them all. some of them
13.
Yeah, some of them
dun, dun, dun.
Most of them do not directly challenge the player, even in the post game where you can like hunt them down. But a couple of them will fight you. But on top of those 7, there is this enigmatic character that they refer to as like their king, N. And he is like he's basically your third rival. You actually have kind of like a third rival in this game, but N has a lot of weird quirks to him. The smallest and most meaningless of these quirks is that he talks really fast, and the game actually like makes a point that he talks fast. So he has the fastest dialogue text speed at all times, unless you already have it set to fast, in which case he will have his
even
text,
faster.
His text will appear instantly. Like it doesn't even like take frames to load the individual letters. Every text box is just instant. It's like they want to make it a point he talks fast. So I've never watched the anime that far in for Black and White. I didn't really care for what I watched, but I really hope that's something that they did, like in the actual show. Like, please tell me that N actually talks really fast, because that is important.
They probably didn't.
I have never watched the Black and White anime. I have no clue. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. I've seen a little bit of it, and I didn't like it.
But N is basically your third rival, and he has another unique aspect to him where he does not keep the same team. In most instances where you have a rival, they have a team that slowly builds over the course of the game. So, like with Blue in the original games, he only really rotated out his Raticate, but he would always have his like Pidgey line, he'd always have his Abra line, and he would slowly build up, either Gyarados, Arcanine, or Exeggutor, depending on which version. 2 of those, you'd have a starter, and then he'd eventually add a Rhyhorn that would become a Rhydon. So like he was slowly putting his team together. And pretty much all the rivals functioned like that, except for Wally, because you literally only fight him when he has a Ralts, and then suddenly he has a team of 5 Pokemon after. But he still
there's a lot that happens between those 2 fights.
Yeah.
Namely, the entire game.
To be fair, it's because you only fight him once before the 3rd gym, and then not again until right at the end of the game. So like
at Victory Road.
But it's one of those instances where like he still has, at least one member of his team. So he's like, but he's still an exception. But N, he basically replaces his whole team. And not just with any Pokemon, like he replaces his Pokemon, with the exception of the final fight for reasons, with Pokemon that are in the surrounding area. So like if you're fighting him, when you fight him for the first time, right at he actually challenges you in the first time that you meet them. He fights you with a Purloin, and Purloin is a Pokemon that can be found right in that area. Like you can find it on the routes right nearby. So, and then like later on in the game, you'll fight him in the Chargestone Cave, and he'll fight you with Pokemon you could find in Chargestone Cave. Like he is the canon is that he doesn't keep these Pokemon, he befriends them for a bit, and then he lets them go again after, because he truly does not believe in keeping Pokemon captive. So like that's his whole story arc, is like learning that for the most part, trainers are not keeping their Pokemon captive. They are friends with them, and they spend time and bond and connect with each other. And the Pokeballs are just a resting place for them to go to. Like he like struggles to learn to like really accept that and acknowledge it over the course of the game. So that's like his whole story arc. So all 3 of the main rivals, they have a story arc to them.
It's funny, we go from Gen 3 with no rivals to
wow,
Gen 5 with 3 rivals.
3 really good rivals, honestly. Yeah. All 3 of them have like their own respectively solid teams, and they're all interesting characters. Yeah. Especially N, honestly.
Yeah. The writing can be, it's Pokemon, but like even with N, like he has like he has the kind of writing behind him and the kind of like interactions where it's like you want to keep going because you're like, okay, I want to know. Al says that and does talk fast with Japanese voices on in the anime. So that's, or I'm assuming in Master. Oh, he says Masters EX. That's interesting. Oh, cool. So yeah, he's a pretty well written character, and that is like the strongest set of rivals that we have. But we also have a new set of gym leaders in the first games. There's like a trio. Silent Crust Chili. Yes, I got those, basically. There's Lenora, there's Berg, there's Elisa, I think it's Alessa, Clay, there's there's Skyla. Fun fact, Skyla's inspiration when they were designing her was Jennifer Lopez. I'm not making this up. That is literally what was in their documents.
Not only that, but their like main descriptors for her were big boobs and Latina.
Yup.
And I'm like, hell yeah, brother.
like that's what they went with. Then, as we talked to, there was Bryson in the first games, and then there's, depending on the version, they had a version exclusive. Their teams were mostly pretty much the same, but you had Drayden or Iris, and they were both in a city called Opelucid City, which also was version exclusive design-wise, where it took inspiration. If you were in black, it was more futuristic. If you were in white, it was more medieval. It was more castle-like instead of like cyber. So there was a little bit of a difference there. And then in the second game, they a few of these gym leaders would kind of dip out for various reasons, and then we would add Charon, as we talked about earlier. We would add Roxy, who is the new gym leader in that area that you start the game in. There's
Burbank City.
Yeah, Burbank City.
She's in Burbank.
And you still keep Berg, you still keep Alessa, you still keep Clay, you still keep Skyla. And then because you skip the 7th gym from the first games, you go right to Drayden, only Drayden, because Iris is more plot significant in the sequels. She actually eventually becomes champion. And the 8th gym is a new gym in Humalau City with Marlin, who I thought was black, but he's not actually black. He's just extremely tan.
Have you seen his feet? It's weird. He's just a very, very tan white man.
It probably doesn't help because one of his feet is in shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
but
it
like...
still looks like, so you get like a weird, like one is like really bright, one is really dark.
But you can also
his,
see like the tan line above his waist.
Yeah, it is weird.
It is overworld sprite. You can't tell because it does not have the tan line.
No,
exactly.
So I can understand where you're coming from, Cloud.
Yeah. Fun fact though. But yeah, so you have them, and then in the Elite Four you have the same 4 across both games. You have Chantal, you have wow, I'm blanking on one of the girls' names. But there's Chantal, there's Grimsley, there's Marshall, Caitlin. There's Caitlin. Caitlin's actually not debuting in this game. She actually was in Platinum and Heart Gold Soul Silver as a Frontier Brain, although she wasn't directly the one fighting. She had her butler Derek do the fighting instead. But she is... Yes, but she is actually... She is aged up from those games, so we have confirmation through her that Black and White take place sometime after Diamond and Pearl. I don't remember the exact time. They did have like a timeline where they laid that out, but she ends up moving up and becoming an Elite Four member. And then the champion is originally Alder in the first game, but he expresses, even in the first game, that he is not interested in holding the position for much longer, and he is interested in leaving the position and, doing and just retiring.
And also he's homeless.
And also he's homeless. He doesn't have he eventually does have like a home he settles into in the second game, but like he's still wandering around all over the place. Like the man doesn't really seem to like stay there for long. But Iris would end up growing up, and she would become the champion in the second game after that whole time lapse. So
probably one of the hardest champions.
She has
she's one of my favorite champions, actually.
She has a great team.
Great team, great background, like the visuals for that fight are crazy, and the music is...
Yeah.
By the way, the music for all of these games, or for all 4 of these games, are fucking phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
like,
the games have a really good
soundtrack.
soundtrack.
It goes without saying, honestly, but
we talked about it. Like they really put a lot of effort into the soundtrack for these games, because like I didn't say it earlier, but there are actually some differences in the soundtrack based on what season you are in as well. For some areas, they will change their soundtrack if it's like a certain season. It's not usually like a very big difference. It's usually very like small, very like hard to notice changes unless you're like listening to both of them. Or whichever version it is for the season, but they did that. They had a lot of really just banger battle themes, overworld themes, city themes. You have just a lot of good stuff there. But yeah, I will say Iris is a good champion in my opinion for the fact that like she takes an active role in the story of Black 2 White 2. She is not just cooped up in the champions room of the Elite Four in the Pokemon League. She is like going in she meets you in Castelia because there's some shit happening with like Team Plasma and they're in the sewers, and like she like heads down there with you. She like helps out over there, and she like comes back a couple of times over the course of the story. Like she is active and working and like doing her duty to like keep the region in order.
Alder does kind of the same thing because he's actively part of the story. He's just a bumbling idiot in comparison to Iris.
He's a bumbling idiot, and also like he definitely is like tired of doing it over the course.
And smelly and homeless.
And
did you mention challenge mode yet?
No.
These games had challenge.
So I wanted to wait to talk about like the full feature because like I referred.
Oh, okay,
to
hold on.
Earlier.
We can wait until later. I wanted to bring something else up though related to Alder, because Black and White were the first games in the series where the final boss is not the champion.
Yeah, I wanted to say Alder. Not only is he a bumbling idiot, he actually does not do his job properly and loses. Technically, he like loses.
He loses before you can get to him.
You don't. It's kind of funny too, because like when you spoilers for a 14-year-old game that everybody's talked about at this point, but Team Plasma ends up managing to get this close to their goal. This like, and I know some of you might be listening to audio. I am holding my fingers as like really close together, like they are almost touching, because
the atoms are almost smooching.
Oh no.
The only thing that they needed to do in order to set all the Pokemon in the region free, they had hacked the system of the PC. Like, not even the PC systems manager of Unova could do their job right and keep these people from getting in. They hacked the PC system, and they only had to like just do a line of code or just do a couple like commands, and gone would be everybody's Pokemon. But they wanted to listen to their king N, and N also wanted a fair fight at the end to decide whose ideals were stronger, what was going to be the future of the region, basically. And so you have a confrontation with you have the 2 box art legendaries of Reshiram and Zekrom. In previous games, these legendaries would usually just be tied to their own game. You wouldn't really see the other one. But in this case, you do have both of them very importantly facing off against each other. In fact, the game, I mean, you don't have to use the Pokemon.
The game kind of encourages you to.
Not only do they encourage you to, they force you to capture it. So, like, you don't have to use it once you capture it, but the game forces you to capture it. And the game really wants you to use this Pokemon against N, because you will have, based on your version, you'll have one, N will have the other, and they will face off against each other. And they will face off against each other first. Like, they are the first things to fight each other, and then you'll have your back set of 5 Pokemon as well to fight each other. And this is not even the final fight, because not only do you have to catch this Pokemon, and then you have to fight N for the future of Unova. Getsis, that asshole that I talked about earlier, he likes to come in and he's just like, N, you're a failure and disgusting and I hate you and I'm just gonna do what I want. And then he comes after you, lashes out, and fights you with probably one of the hardest fights in the entire series.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just full stop. He has just a lot of really strong Pokemon from the Unova region, and this isn't a game where, as we talked about earlier, your options are extremely limited because you're working with just the new Pokemon, and he has, not only does he have a lot of strong ones, he also has one that is one of the strongest in the region. At 10 levels below, you're supposed to be able to get it. That's really cool.
Yep. That Hydreigon is the stuff of nightmares.
It has a stacked moveset too.
It has crazy type coverage with that moveset. There is very little that can take it out easily.
Yeah. And it can easily even beat your legendary that you just used to fight N with. It's that crazy.
It's got Dragon Pulse.
Yep.
It'll take you out.
It's crazy. So you have that, and then and because that is the end of the conflict, that is the main story. You can go back after, and you can go to the post game. There's the Eastern Unova. This is for Black 1, White 1, because we're going to talk more about the sequels in a bit. We're probably going to have a quick break in between. But in Black, White 1, that is the end of the main story. And if you decide to go back to the league after, you will have not only rematches with higher level Elite Four members, but you will also have a fight against Alder properly, because even though he technically lost, the whole end thing was not official, I guess, enough. So Alder gets to fight you as an actual champion, and he fights you with his own little team, and you can actually get the champion title and actually enter the Hall of Fame properly, because you don't do it the first time. It's pretty interesting. The first Pokemon games to not do that, and the only games so far to not do that. You don't enter the Hall of Fame after when the credits roll for the first time. Even in the games where they switch the formula up for some reason, in Generation 7, they would have an island trial instead of gyms. You still had an Elite Four, you still became champion, you still entered the Hall of Fame. In Galar, there wasn't a proper Elite Four, you just had a tournament to fight the champion. You still fight the champion, you still enter the Hall of Fame. And Paldea, you have 3 arcing stories, but in order to get to the end of one of them, you still fight the champion and you enter the Hall of Fame and you become a champion. And the rest of the story takes place after you're already a champion ranked trainer. But there's always a Hall of Fame, there's always a champion, except for this game's main story. So it's still unique in that regard. But as we were talking about earlier, Black 2, White 2, they change up a lot. There's new features that were added, and Jack was referring to one. I was referring to the same thing earlier. We'll get to that, though. But before that, we should do our mid-roll house cleaning, talking about our goings-on with streams and just our Patreon and stuff like that. Jack, could you do the honors? Because I need a quick break to get my throat cleared up and get a new drink.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. We have a Patreon. Patreon.com/GamingStooges. You can join us at the Silver Stooge tier for $3 a month. You get access to voting on future content. You get to decide what we talk about on podcasts or what we play next for streams in some cases. Landon, I'm surprised you haven't gotten up yet to get Tillamook.
Hi.
Okay. There's the Gold Stooge tier, where for $6 a month you get access to exclusive content. We do monthly videos. We have tier lists. This month's video will be the tier list for the various Pokemon of the Unova region. We have those for all of the previous regions as well. We also do...
This comes out May 30th, so it's still technically May.
It's still... Okay, well... Next month, then.
Yeah, June's video.
That'll be June's video. Should I talk about May's video?
Yeah, go ahead, talk about May's video.
Hey, the Mario Kart marathon that we recorded a year and 4 months ago is finally going up. So you can enjoy that. All 6 hours of it. Go nuts. Who will win?
Me. I'm gonna doctor the video so I win.
For current streams, Landon is still playing Dragon Quest Heroes, the World Trees Woe, and the Blight Below. I almost said Wind Tree again. Cloud just recently started Final Fantasy V, as of when this goes up. I am still in the middle of Legend of Zelda the Minish Cap, and Landon and I are still doing Ace Attorney Dual Destinies. We are getting closer to the end. Not quite close yet, because we just started Case 5, so we still have quite a ways to go, but we are getting there.
Also, we
join our Discord.
I don't do it regularly. I do it like sporadically. We have been playing Kingdom Hearts 2 as well for the channel, and I managed to get us to the Lingering Will fight. There will be another stream eventually where we're going to see if we can actually beat him. We were not successful. We managed to beat all the data replicas though, so those are all done. Literally the last thing left to do in Kingdom Hearts 2 is beat the final super boss. That's going to be pretty fun. All right.
Nice.
Did you already go over everything else?
Yep.
Okay.
I talked about the Patreon. I mentioned everything else.
All right. So we're going to jump back.
Oh yeah, shout out to Pixel Vixen.
Yes. No?
No? Is it done?
It is.
Okay. Never mind. I retract my shout out until Pixel Vixen resumes her gold tier Stooge subscription.
But thank you everybody who has subbed to the Patreon before and may sub to the future. So jumping back in, we're going to focus more on this next part of the rest of the podcast on the sequels, and then we'll talk about our overall thoughts about the generation as a whole. With the sequels, we already referred to a lot of like the changes that happen, different protagonists, some different characters, returning characters, and how they've changed over time. But one thing that Jack and I both referred to, there is a way to influence some of, or at least see also, how some of the passage of time actually happens in a link feature for the games. So I can't remember the name, the specific, the overall mode, but there's a setting on the main menu where if you go in, you can connect to your original game. So if you have Black 2, you can connect to your white or black version, etc. And it will give you story pieces that you can watch, and it'll show you stuff like Sharon and Bianca going through their motions and like what they're gonna decide to do in the future. Ends battles with himself in his mind over the fact that Pokemon aren't always just tools, they are friends for trainers, and just a lot of stuff like that. There's also the ability when you beat Black 2 or White 2, specifically between these two versions, you can unlock a challenge mode, or for some reason an easy mode. Black 2 unlocks challenge mode, White 2 unlocks easy mode, and if you send it to the other game, then you can have both options on one game as well, so that's pretty cool. And those links, they do not expire, obviously, if you start a new game. So they will save separate. They're kind of like wonder cards in that regard, where they save separate to you actually having the game save file. So you'll be able to like start a new game and go through it with that mode. And you can freely toggle between that mode as long as you go back to that at the main menu. The challenge mode adds extra levels and moveset and additional Pokemon and some held items. Like they basically just like make the Pokemon more fleshed out and harder to fight. Easy mode just lowers their levels up across the board a bit, just makes it a little bit easier to fight. There's also a way to link the two versions together in that mode in order to send keys that will do stuff like certain version exclusive legendaries. Like you get the Reggie trio, there's Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. Regice and Regirock are actually version exclusives, and you have to send the other key over in order to get, or it might be Registeel and Regice, and the Regirock is the first one. You get that one. But 2 of them are version exclusives, and you send the key over in order to give it to the other game, so that if you guys get to both do it, like if you're, and I say you guys, like if you're 2 friends, like you send it over to your friend, you'll be able to actually get all 3 of them, and then you'll be able to get Regigigas. So like there's just a few different, and all of that stuff is in that same menu option on the main menu. Like this is all tied to the same thing, so you can get a bunch of just like extra little goodies just by linking your games, and those all are done through the same infrared function that I mentioned early in the podcast. So like when I say they went through and they did a lot of like weird stuff with the infrared, they did a lot of weird stuff with the infrared.
It is in fact Regirock is the one in both, and then Steel and Ice are the key exclusives.
Right, because you catch him first, and then you have to do the exclusive one, and then send the other one over. Right, okay. So yeah, Black 2 White 2 also has a lot of interesting post-game stuff. We mentioned the Pokemon World Tournament is basically a replacement for the Battle Frontier. You'll be able to actually fight a lot of classic trainers from all of the previous games. Almost all the major NPCs are in the game. There are like, by major I mean like the gym leaders and the elite, not the Elite Four members, but the gym leaders for the most part, and some of the rivals. Like there's just like there's like some people that are left out, but like there's a lot of like crazy like recurring trainers from the previous games that are there. All 4 Generation 5 games actually have Cynthia returning from the previous generation, and she's like an endgame boss that you can fight in the post game with like a crazy team in every single game. You can fight Game Freak's Shigeki Morimoto, and this is the first game where you can fight him. This becomes a trend in almost every game moving forward, where you can fight a Game Freak employee or 2, and beating them will allow you to get some sort of reward. That reward varies between the games, but you'll be able to get a reward from that. Morimoto's team in this is like pretty much all Unova Pokemon. Like he just went all in on that for some reason. That's just what he wanted to do. Later games you'd be able to fight like Nishino, and he'd have a Snorlax because that was literally the Pokemon that they modeled after him. Like that whole trend started in this game, so it's pretty cool that they did that.
I wish the reward was my $40 back for buying this game.
Damn, that's Black 2 White 2 also added some special post-game little story bits, both the little link mode thing that I mentioned, but also if you go back to like Victory Road, you'll be able to follow N's Zoroark, and you can actually fight N. Depending on the season, he'll have different teams. So he like rotates his teams around like he rotated his teams in the first game, and he'll have entire weather-based teams depending on which version, or not which version, which season you're in. I don't remember the exact. I think it's spring is rain, summer is summer's sun team, fall is sandstorm team, and winter's hail team. I think. I got that right. I thought I was going to mix up.
That right.
I thought I was going to mix up spring and autumn, to be honest. But he has that team for each season, so that's pretty cool. And you actually get to go around the region, and you can catch his Pokemon from the first game. So they'll have like a special visual effect when you encounter them. But like the Boldore that he uses, like you can get his Zorua as well at one point. If you catch like all his other Pokemon, you'll be able to get a Zoro as well. But yeah, you can get N's Pokemon. That's a little whole side quest that you can do. I mentioned the Yancey and Curtis like dating side quest that you can do with them. So there's like
fucked up.
There's so many side quests you can do in this game. This is the side quest Pokemon game before Legends Arceus had like a mission structure to it. Pretty cool.
I think I'll say so. There's the two new characters to really talk about are Hugh, your rival for Black 2, White 2, and then
Colress.
Yes.
Which is he's the villain. Has taken over Team Plasma.
Yeah, he has a weird role in the story, and the fact that he's not evil, but he's doing evil things because it furthers his own goals that are very neutral aligned.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought how, like, much like how Sharon and Bianca have, like, kind of opposite character paths over the course of the story. Like, I've always thought that, like, the parallels between Hugh and Colress to be kind of interesting, because Hugh wants the right things. Wait, no.
He wants revenge.
He wants the right things for the wrong reason, and Colress wants the wrong things for the right reasons. Basically.
It's basically like Tillamook's chocolate peanut butter. One wants like, chocolate and the other wants peanut butter.
Like, Hugh is like, you know, he's after revenge. Like, he wants to get back at Team Plasma for stealing his sister's purloin.
Yeah. So he wants
to
also
get it back.
Yeah. So
he wants to do the right thing, but he's also fueled by revenge.
Exactly. So he's fueled for the wrong reasons.
And Colress is, you know, he's a part of Team Plasma, but he's doing it for research purposes, for like potential of a greater future.
His whole goal is he wants to research and capitalize on his research for the bonds between trainers and their Pokemon, and like, how does it affect the Pokemon? How does it make them stronger? So like, he's just trying to learn about how Pokemon evolve, basically, and how trainers evolve. But as you said, he's using Team Plasma, and by the way, so Team Plasma, as we mentioned in the original games, they were a uniform team that was all working together for the same goal, but a lot of the grunts we would learn are doing it for different reasons. And that becomes more clear in the sequels, where some of the grunts, they stay with under the idea of Team Plasma as Getsis intended, where like they're just trying to cause trouble for people, they're just trying to take Pokemon, they're just trying to be in control of the region, and they're just trying to have power. And then there's the old team, there's what they call the old Team Plasma, which they were fighting for the right reasons. They kind of seclude themselves over by like Driftvale City and a few other places, and they hide out with a couple of the sages that actually defected because they were like the grunts. They were actually joining Team Plasma for the reasons that they thought Team Plasma stood for. But there are other sages that they did, when they not only did they get away from being captured, but they also are flat out like Zinzolin, I believe, is the major sage that antagonizes you, and he's like all about like, they're trying to call Kyurem, the third legendary, to like ice over the region, and he's like, the cold makes me feel alive, and he's like an asshole that like wants nothing more than to just cause trouble for people. And yeah, so like Colress is working with that Team Plasma. He is working with the Team Plasma that Zinzolin's in charge of, that Getsis would be revealed later to be pulling the strings behind, because of obviously Getsis got away and he's doing his dickery with Kyurem now instead of trying to control Reshiram or Zekrom or N. He's just going directly for a legendary and trying to take over with that. And Colress is working with them, but he's doing it for their resources, because they have a lot of tech, they have a lot of resources, they have a lot of money, and like they have the means for him to do his research. And later in the post game, you can actually fight him, and he'll be on the boat that this new evil Team Plasma uses, because it's basically been vacated after everybody else is rounded up and, you know, they're thrown in jail or whatever, they're captured. And Colress just kind of chills there because the resources are still there for him to do his research. So you can go back and you can just rematch him, and he's another post-game trainer that you can fight over and over again, like every day. So might I add, we talked about music. Colress's battle theme, fucking awesome. Like just the just the melody, the fact that you have like the actual human counting down like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 throughout to like kind of like bring home the whole like experiment feel, like the whole scientist aspect to Colress. Like it's just great character, great theming.
Don't forget the Dennis chants.
Oh yeah, in black and white.
Gets's theme.
In black and white, or yeah, you had Gets's Dennis, and they come back even in the remix. And the remix.
Yeah, I will say though, Gets's theme is like, it's not a theme that I go out of my way to ever listen to because it's not very catchy or fun. But like in the moment of the story, it is menacing as fuck. Because, like, the entire time, like, I'm battling him, I'm just kind of, like, waiting for, like, this song to, like, take off and go somewhere. But it's just, like, this, like, really fucking, like, repetitive and, like, anxiety-inducing drum beat. It's different as fuck for, a battle theme in Pokemon, but I kind of like it for that.
Yeah. It hits the right vibe in the right way that you need. And Gets's is also one of the few trainers in the entire mainline franchise, and just the franchise in general, where you have to do this epic fight with him, where he has 7 Pokemon, because you have to fight the Kyurem he's in control of. And then he fights you with his team from the first game, although they're watered down because you fight him earlier in the story. So like they butchered the move sets, their levels are slightly lower, but like you still get to fight him. So you have this big epic encounter with him. But the conclusion of the game is more standard eventually. Like, you know, Getsis ends up just like leaving. You actually get to fight the Shadow Triad, which are like these like 3 ninja dudes that escort that like work with Team Plasma. They show up in the post game and like in parts of like the late story aspect of Black and White 1, but they're not prominent, but they show up a lot more in this version, and then you get to fight them a little bit. So that's an interesting like addition where you get to fight them. But like that's all resolved basically by the time that the main you're about to go for like your 8th badge. It has like the same structure as the typical Pokemon games where you don't have to do 2. Actually, I think it's after the 8th badge, but before the league. You have a few encounters with them before that though. But yeah, it's before the league. By the time you get to the Pokemon League, everything is like under control and everything is normal again. The region still hasn't fully recovered from before, so like you have to take a new path through Victory Road, but you get to fight the Elite Four. It's the same Elite Four as the original games, and then you fight Champion Iris, and Iris gets to fight you in the epic encounter that we talked about earlier. So yeah, Black 2 and White 2, it's a lot more standard structurally speaking than the Black and White 1, which changed up the formula a little bit as far as like story progression, but it also has a ton of side content that we talked about. So there's so much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back streets? I'm making
indeed.
No.
What no. More to say?
No, one more to say.
No thanks.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on Black and White 1 overall? And then what are your thoughts on Black and White 2? Both like in isolation and in respect to them being sequels to Black and White 1.
I love both of them. I think they both have different strengths and weaknesses. I like Black and White 1 a lot more for the story and the characters and just the world. But in Black 2, White 2, I like it a lot more gameplay-wise. I think it's a more fun game to play through start to finish than Black 1 and White 1. The region is more expansive, there's more side content, they add more cities. The regional Pokedex, this is something we haven't brought up yet, but the regional Pokedex in Black and White 2 is fucking massive. Like, there's a shitload of Pokemon that you can catch from previous regions.
For its time. Its size is basically...
At the time.
Its size is basically kind of standard nowadays. In fact, it's like the first game.
Like,
but yeah, at
the time, it was like, holy shit, you can catch Riolu, like, in Route 19, which is like the starting route.
It's really well balanced. Like, you can get some cool Pokemon early, and a lot of cool Pokemon earlier than you would normally would in like any other game. Like, you can get a Magnemite. Yeah. You can get a Magnemite in the city where you fight the Poison type gym leader. So you are perfectly poised to beat the Poison type gym leader with this Steel type Pokemon that's hanging around in that city. Like, it's well designed in just the little things that it does with the Pokedex.
You know, it's a great regional dex because it has Dunsparce.
It does.
That's all I'm saying. Dunsparce isn't in the game. It's probably a good game. Maybe.
Damn. That might be spoilers for Landon's thoughts on a game he might be playing in the future.
We'll see. Will I be running a full team of 6 Dunsparce when I get to that game?
Dunsparce is also a Pokemon that you can catch early as fuck, too.
Yeah. And Black 2, White 2, they don't really mess around too much, so like in a lot of Pokemon games, you'll have the instance where like a lot of like weak Pokemon are like super rare and come like late in the game for some stupid reason. Black 2, White 2, they don't really mess around with that. Like, if you're gonna get a Pokemon and it's not super strong, you'll probably be getting it earlier. And if it's strong and it's good, you'll probably be getting it later, but it may be rare if it's like a hard Pokemon to get, or if they're not intended to evolve till too late into the game. Like, it's pretty well balanced, like what you can get when you can get it. And I love that. It's great.
I was wrong, by the way. You cannot catch Riolu on Route 19, but I do remember that you can get it very early.
You can get it at the ranch. It's like...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's, yeah, because it's that encounter.
The Flotchesy Ranch.
Yep, there's that. There's like Psyduck. There's a Zurill. There's Mareep. You can get Mareep.
Yeah.
If you want, you know. But yeah, keep going on how you feel about Black 2, White 2.
Yeah, sorry. Black 2, White 2, like, really, really fun game, start to finish. It's replayable, because like the different ways that you can like build your team, just because of the sheer number of options that you have. Again, for this point in the series, like having this big of a regional dex was like unheard of. Like,
yes.
You know, Gen 3 had a lot of Pokemon from Gens 1 and 2 in its regional dex, but it also had a massive amount of new Pokemon to select from that like far overshadows like the number of like Pokemon from previous generations that you can get. But Black 2, White 2, I don't remember exactly how many it was. Hold on, let me look it up.
It's 300.
Is it 300?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, let me go through it real quick, and then you can talk on other aspects. But because we don't want to stick on like the Pokedex size. But Kanto's 150, Johto's 250. Hoenn is 200, Sinnoh's 150 in the original, and then Platinum makes it 210. Univa's 300, so up until that point, or Univa Black 2, White 2 is 300, base game was 150. So up until that point, biggest regional Pokedex. And it only kept staying about that big or bigger every game after. So like, first games to really like nail home that a bigger regional Dex, actually pretty good idea.
But I think in terms of like, just the most, in my opinion, like personally speaking, like Black 2 and White 2 are the most fun Pokemon games, like second only to like Pokemon Emerald for me. They're like really fucking fun. And I love Black 1 and White 1 as well, obviously. It's just a little bit less replayable just because of the lack of exploration and side content compared to 2, but they're both fantastic games, and like overall this is my second favorite generation behind 3.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer, Steve. I'm pretty much in a similar boat, so like Black 2, White 2, just all around, it's possibly my favorite generation. It's really hard for me to choose between 3, 4, and 5. I think all three of these, I say this a lot, generations 3 through 5 is like the golden age of Pokemon, in my opinion. You have all of the first 5 regions to play through in some form or another, through remakes or being the original games. And all of the upper versions, your Emerald, your Platinum, your Black 2, White 2, are just chock full of content, just chock full of stuff to do. Like you could literally just get lost in those games and just never stop playing them. And Black 2, White 2, Black and White, I like the presentation of a lot. I just like how fluid everything is. We didn't mention this, but in Generation 4, like the pacing was a little bit slowed down because the games were running at like 30 FPS, and like just like all around the games were just kind of slow with like movement and everything. And Black 2, White 2, and Black and White, they like sped it back up. So like overworld traversal is still about the same speed. It feels a little faster though, but the battles, they're a lot, they went back to like the same speed of like the Generation 3 games. Everything's like animated too in battle, so like they're like fully like the Pokemon are moving around, and just like the menu screens on the bottom and everything's just so crisp and fluid. Just like I like the UI and everything. So just great presentation. We talked about music, great music. As Jack said, Black and White 1 are the games that you want to play if you ever want to just replay the story. Like if you want a good Pokemon game just to play the story, Black White 1, despite those little shortcomings of like, you know, having the limited Pokedex, if you can get past that, excellent story. Just
it really does not get better than Black 1 and White 1 for stories in the main series.
I could debate, but like it's up there, yeah. Black 2, White 2, as you said. As far as content goes, some of the best in the entire series. I went over so many little things that these two didn't even remember or know existed in Black 2, White 2. That's just that much stuff to do. They are my second favorite games next to Heart Gold, Soul Silver, just because Heart Gold, Soul Silver just have a special place for me. But Black 2, White 2 just have a lot of stuff you can do. And I love the Unova region. I think it's very cleanly designed. You know, you can go and say like, yeah, like, there's like shortcomings, especially in the original Black and White 1 about the region, but like I just really love the Unova region. It just makes me feel like I'm actually part of the world, as opposed to just playing through a map for the game to drive me through. I love the region. I love the characters are all really good, so it's just like Black and White 1, I don't know how high up my list they would be, but they're high up there. So like overall, definitely one of my favorites. I definitely think they're great. And like I said, it's one of those things where like it's great to play both of them, because one of them's good with story, one of them's good with gameplay, and they're not just like one of them is just a rehash of the other one. No, they're like two separate full-on games. The only generation where like in the middle of the generation they had sequels. So like, yeah, good generation.
I love Dream Radar.
You are trying to push some buttons there, sir.
You can get a Shuckle in Dream Radar. I love Dream Radar.
You can get a Shuckle in Dream Radar.
Yeah. I actually used in my Black 2 playthrough, I used Shuckle because you can transport it from Dream Radar to this game.
Yeah,
so contrary. So something you didn't even mention was a mechanic this game introduced was hidden abilities.
Yep.
Which is not really like a huge upgrade.
But it does give a lot of Pokemon like a special little addition. And we didn't talk about Dream Radar really, even in the spin-off title. But that is in the spin-off in the main Pokemon podcast where we talked about like all the spin-offs. But Dream Radar is a game that can connect to Black 2 and White 2. And if you catch Pokemon with the gyroscope controls and like the AR, you can send them into Black 2, White 2. And the levels will scale based on how far into the game you are. But you can send them pretty fucking early.
Yeah, just like basically I ran a Shuckle as one of my like starter Pokemon in Black 2 because of that, and it was a lot of fun. I love this like generation with like the weird like Dream Radar, and then what was it fucking called? Just the Pokemon Dream World. like that app that you were talking about, that browser-based game.
Yeah.
Like, it was website. Like crazy how much they were trying to expand out of the game. And I mean, they started it, like you mentioned, with Heart Gold, Soul Silver with the Pokewalker.
Yep.
But they were trying to, like, experiment with what can we do to, like, milk people's time.
Yeah. Like, let's not just think of just the game itself. What can we do around the game that ties to the game somehow?
Yeah. To make people want to continue to invest. I feel like that was the eventual evolution into Pokemon Go.
Yeah, honestly, this game, it may not have, like, kept a lot of things around that, like, would move forward, but it did, like, really inspire a lot of stuff that would just happen later. Like, a lot of that connectivity stuff, a lot of this, like, extra stuff you can do on the side, like, you see pieces of it all across the future of the series.
Yeah, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. These guys have pretty much said it. I like both of these games. Black 2, White 2 is probably one of the best games in the franchise. So it's all downhill from here.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the other generations as time permits. We typically do 2 generations per season, so we will be talking about Generation 6 later, and I don't think that the things we'll have to say are going to be nearly as positive.
Big oof.
When we start talking about Generation 6 onward. We'll have stuff to say that's positive, I'm sure, but we have like almost universally acclaimed these games, and we've had a lot of good stuff to say about previous games, but that's not going to hold true that much moving forward. So, this is a high note. Generation 5, great generation. If you are, a Pokemon fan, or if you're trying to get into Pokemon, like, it's just good time. With that, do we have a little bit of time to just talk about real quick what each of us have been up to before we sign off?
Sure, yeah.
All right. Jack, what have you been up to last couple weeks?
Boy. Let's see.
Do you need a moment? Because I can literally say my thing in like a few sentences.
I was going to say I didn't really do a whole lot the past couple weeks. Hold on, let me look and see.
All right, I'll just go and say mine while you're...
Yeah, go for it.
So,
go for it.
I can summarize. I've been playing Dragon Quest XI-S, Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition on my Nintendo Switch.
Hell yeah, buddy.
I've been playing a fuck ton of that. Landon has turned me into a monster for this series now. I'm going to be getting into so many of the other games now thanks to this game.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No, I really mean it. Like, I'll talk more about it. We have a Patreon exclusive discussion planned between the two of us where we're going to talk about it. And just like, so I looked at my save files because I have one save file for each like major chunk of the game. And I looked at my first save file and I didn't realize it was actually last saved on the 15th. We're recording this live on the 21st. So less than a week. And I have already doubled my playtime in less than a week. Which means that in the 2 weeks since the last podcast, I've probably spent like 75% maybe, or maybe even 80% of my playtime just playing those in those 2 weeks. Dragon Quest XI-S has completely taken over my life, and it was
You sort of hit the spot in the game where it just everything clicks.
Yep.
Like,
and then just kept going.
Late. Not the end of Act 1, but like pretty late in Act 1.
A chunk into Act 1.
The hook actually sinks, and like it pulls you along at least all the way through Act 2.
I was gonna say I think the point when it really clicks is like once you have the I don't want to get technical, but I'm not gonna get technical, but like once you have like your technical full party at that point,
once you have the 7-party team,
it pulled me along and it did not let me go. So it was. I'm in the post game now. I'm going to be doing some side stuff that's in the post game. There's a lot you can do, but I'm going to try and like get through enough of it so I can fight the special super boss that's at the end of that, because it's like like the post game actually has like a story to it, and I can't let I was originally just gonna let the game sit after the credits, and then I got into the post game. I was like, nah, we're going.
I knew, that's why I asked you to at least get to the point, and I feel like when we actually do the video, you will know what point I was referring to.
Yeah.
But there's a point where the game wants the player to make a choice, and
I know what
it is either you keep playing the game or you stop playing the game. Like, those are your two options. And
yeah.
If you want to sort of know more about that, either play Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age or the Nintendo Switch family of entertainment systems, or some other fucking system, you coward. Or, watch our Patreon video whenever that goes out.
Probably in a couple months at most. Might be maybe our July. That's it though. Yeah, I've been playing Echoes of an Elusive Age, and I intend to finish it by the time we get to our next podcast. So I'll hopefully have something else to talk about in the next podcast. But yeah, Jack, what have you been up to? You said you've been up to a lot.
No, I have not been up to a lot.
No?
Not very much at all in the past 2 weeks, honestly. I went to a show. Oh, no, I went to a couple shows. But, like, outside of that, I feel like it's been a lot of work and
just
being busy.
Being busy and tired.
I just have...
No gaming? Besides...
Not a lot.
Besides, obviously, the Twitch stuff.
Yeah, no. Not a whole lot.
Oh, you haven't been able to play more Penny's Big Breakaway?
Not since the last podcast.
He's been too busy giving us his high and low review for this last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was working really hard on that one.
He was saying it the entire time.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was actually telling us the review like every night nonstop until like the podcast. Like,
2 weeks.
He's had no time to do anything else.
I haven't even gone to work in the last 2 weeks. I've been like stuck in this call,
listening to him give you the review. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Landon, what have you been up to the last couple weeks?
I have also been playing because Cloud his enthusiasm. I've been
in the Discord just absolutely spamming the shit out of the general chat.
And I mean, I have like wanted to go back and actually play through Act 3, as I never did that. But 5 years later, I'm like, fuck it. Like, this is a good enough time. I was trying to play Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus again. I feel bad for that game because every single time I pick it up, I make a little bit of progress and then I drop it. Like when it first came out for PS4 in North America, I picked it up, played it. I got to like a very early spot where you can save the game, stopped playing it, never played it again. Then it got announced for a Switch release. I was like, oh, perfect. It'll be on a system I actually play sometimes. And I bought it I think it was last year, is when the Switch version came out. Started it. I got to the middle of Chapter 2 and dropped it. Because some fucking game came out.
So Tokyo Xanadu is like your Horizon series of games. It's like every time a Horizon game drops, there's always like all these other games around it that for us are just much more exciting. So honestly, a lot of people, those games are more exciting. So like it just kind of gets shoved off and like shoved off.
Yeah. And so after the last podcast, because I was complaining about Pepper Grinder and like some other games I had tried to play, I like went back and I was like, all right, I'll spend the month between now and when the Switch 2 launches and try to play through Tokyo Xanadu. It's good enough. And then like Cloud was just like, I'm really enjoying fucking Dragon Quest XI. And I'm like, you know what? I could play Act 3.
You're like, You're like, I could also be really enjoying Dragon Quest XI right now by playing the post game.
So I'm going to, and I did. I started that. Cloud will probably finish the game before I do because
I'm a monster right now.
I have 2 children.
You've turned me into a monster for this series.
I'm excited to see what you think of Dragon Quest 3 HD2D. Yeah.
And you mentioned that there's a sale started recently, so like as of the time of this podcast, I'm hoping tomorrow I'll be, because I'm going to be going out and hanging out with friends, I might be able to nab a copy during the sale. So
yeah, so it's $20 off is more than a good price. I feel like Dragon Quest 3 HD2D remake is a $60 game, easy.
Oh yeah, like I would buy it if I had no option to get it for cheaper, but if I can get it for cheaper,
I do not blame anyone for buying that game for $40. I would say if you don't buy it for $40, you're a coward.
we're looking at someone who like how much Dragon Quest have you played, Jack?
I played a teeny tiny bit of 8 way back in the day at a friend's house, and I owned 9. I owned 9 and was like tried to get into that like when it came out. I ended up dropping it like probably halfway through. I kind of got bored.
It's interesting too, because DQ9 was like the game that finally got Dragon Quest to click for me. Like it took me a while, but it clicked for me.
I think if I went back to it, I would probably like it more, but like I don't know. The lack of like main characters kind of like made the story less interesting for me.
Yeah, if you're like one of those people that like you need like a story-driven, character-driven RPG, like Dragon Quest 9 is really nice with like individual moments, but not technically really good for like an overarching story. It's just like it's one of those things where like the journey's better than the destination, really. But like, I mean, you could also just play Dragon Quest 11 and you get both. You get the journey and the destination.
Yeah, I would say Dragon Quest 11 is... I would say that would be a good enough, like, jumping into point.
Yeah, from what I have seen of Dragon Quest 11, I feel like I would like it a lot more than I liked 9 back in the day.
I think you would, because, like, it's paced in a way where even though it's really long, it doesn't feel like there's any part that overstays its welcome too long. Like, it's just a long game because there's a lot of story and there's a lot to do, but like
there's a lot of good content.
Yeah, there's a lot of good content.
It's like Persona 5.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, Persona 5 is a long game. It just is. It doesn't matter like if you like really streamline through the game, it's still like there's a lot to do, and that's sort of like Dragon Quest 11 is in a similar boat where there's a good chunk of game to play in this game. Like, it took me 72 hours to go through Act 1 and 2. But I also did a lot of the side quests and the Tinkerton, content that you could do. So, my stuff is probably, longer than what Cloud ended up doing in his.
Not too much, but I also, did a little bit of extra grinding, and I wasn't able to efficiently grind all the time, because I wasn't able to, get the method down to get metal slimes and stuff to appear. But I also didn't do a whole lot of... I did some side stuff, to get, certain items and certain things that were really cool. I did explore to get, some of the stuff that you get from, the keys that you can get. But, I didn't do everything, and I beat the main story in 68 hours, I think it was. 68 or 69 hours, so it was long.
There was only, one side quest in the, from Act 1 and 2 that I did not end up doing. So, that's because they want you to get a fucking jackpot at the casino, and in order to effectively do that, you have to, already have over 100,000 tokens from the casino, so that way you can place very strategic bets. It's I have to spend so much time to get tokens. I'm not gonna bother. Jack,
if you like the casino parts of older Pokemon games, or any game that did something similar to that, I think you would end up spending a lot of time at the casino in Dragon Quest 11. I was not expecting to
it's
have
a good
fun with
casino. it's like a pretty well-made casino. But like when I like considering my specific situation, I just didn't have time to like grind it out. So I was like, I'm just gonna go fucking move the story along. And you can still access that quest even in the post game, because there's sometimes where things you can't access, but that was one that I was like, oh, you can still access it if I want to. Cool.
So that's everything that we've been up to the past couple weeks. So
join us next week when we talk more about Dragon Quest.
We are going to be talking about puzzles in games that aren't like puzzle games. So it's going to be like, how do non-puzzle games incorporate puzzles into their gameplay? It's going to be a fun discussion, I'm sure.
It was a Patreon poll.
It was a Patreon poll.
It was the loser, but we're still giving it a chance.
We do that pretty much every Patreon poll. There's a head-to-head. It was the loser, so it came afterwards. But it's going to be fun. I'm sure we're going to all have examples from like all different games. So that'll be pretty cool.
All Dragon Quest games. Actually, only Dragon Quest games. So get your examples ready, folks.
We'll see you next time. Roll the outro. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I have no bit. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Gaming Stooges Talks podcast. If you enjoyed us, consider subscribing to our podcast RSS feed, or follow us on youtube.com/GamingStooges and twitch.tv/GamingStooges for more gaming content. If you'd like to chat with us, join our Discord. The link can be found in the episode description. We also want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. Your continued support means a lot to us. Not already one? Please take a look at what we have to offer anyone who becomes a patron at patreon.com/GamingStooges. See you next time!